On top of all the amazing powers that the various champions have, you have the ultimate power, this one-time use, potentially, or I should say when targeted correctly, game-changing event that can not only win you the round, but really ripple through the rest of the turns and set yourself up. The question asking when to use the ultimate power. And most of the ultimate powers break down in terms of being able to affect models, being able to affect units and champions, essentially damage dealers. But there are also a number of powers, depending on the champion, that really offer some incredible support that if you're playing with 2 or 3 or more warbands, that you can capitalize on. So the question that we're going to look at today is when to use this power, at what turn. Now, diving into one of the interesting aspects of Godtear that I really enjoy about this game is, unlike other skirmish-based games, and we've explored some of this tactica pushed up to the DNA, the rules mechanics behind Godtear on my channel in the Godtear playlist, but I just want to summarize it a little bit because it's an important foundation to approach the tactica of all the warbands. It's a very, very unique system in that you're never really completely knocked out of the game. And we see this on a tactical level when a champion is killed, or I should say has its wounds removed. In the narrative, the idea they can't really be killed because they're literally infused by the tears of living gods. So they get knocked out and you can spend an action to bring them back. Well, tactically, that has some interesting rippling effects because there are a set number of actions per turn. And if I knock you out, not only do I get the points on the ladder, if I'm a Slayer, I'll get the +1 also, but now I have forced you to expend the resources to kind of shake that off and bring your champion back. Compare that to other skirmish-type war games where it is very much alpha. I destroy units, you remove them off the table. The other aspect is based on the mission. There's a track that moves up and down based on the points, and each round is not worth a fixed amount of points. As the rounds intensify, round 2, round 3 being the massive, massive pinnacle, you get 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, then back down to 1 point. So in exploring this, you can lose the first round, you can lose the second round, which means you have to win the third round. And if you win that third round, even if you've lost round 1 and 2, you're still in a good place to win the game. Obviously, if you win round 2 and 3 or 1, 2, and 3, you've won the game. But it is not just, well, I best out of 5, I won the first 3 rounds, I automatically win the game from that perspective. It is very back and forth. And I appreciate that. But what that does mean is round 1, if you have a bad round, it's only worth 1 battle point, you can come back from that pretty easy. Now, I want to win that round because I want to stock the 1 point, but it's not a game changer in terms of comparing to other skirmish-based games, where if you lose the first round in terms of positioning, you've pretty much lost the game. And this is why this idea in rules design in other skirmish games, poor rules design leaves you vulnerable to the alpha strike. The alpha strike is where I set up my toys, you set up your toys, and I build a specific army list or skirmish list to inflict massive damage on you turn 1. So literally before you get to even do anything or before you can act to me, half your forces are off the table. How can you continue with that? The alpha strike is really, really real. And in all fairness, competitively, a viable tactic. You can deliver the alpha strike in Godtear, even though there's alternating activations. It's harder to do. I've built some alpha lists, but they don't have the bite. They don't have the potency simply because that first round is only worth 1 point. Now, round 3 is where it needs to happen because either you had a slow start and you need round 3 to stay in the game and not get knocked out, or if you had a solid start, round 1, round 2, round 3 is that knockout blow. So that, I find, is when I want to pop off those ultimate powers. Now, it might be tempting where if a champion is in trouble and I've taken a lot of wounds, maybe I want to pop it off to save myself, or at least in the example of two champions going against each other, if I know I'm going to get killed, if I can kill your champion, we'll cancel each other out on the ladder. That's a possibility, but that is not always a game changer in the early rounds because, again, they're worth less points. So I do tend to try and stay away from this fact where if I know I'm going to go down, can I pop off an ultimate and take you with me? All that does, best case, because again, the ultimate powers, they're ultimate, but there is a level of swinginess and dice involvement and mechanical involvement where at best, if I pop that off, I'll tie the points, but at worst, if I don't tie the points, now I've lost my ultimate power and you still have your ultimates. So in terms of that Tactica, that's round 3. Is when I'm looking. And with some of the friends that I play with and we play competitively, you kind of know round 3, things are getting ready to happen because again, either I want to secure that for the guaranteed win, or if I'm a little bit behind and I want to catch up, those 3 battle points are a very, very important factor and an important part to capture. So now I'm going to turn it over to you guys because the Tactica of Godtear, that quest for immortality, there's a lot to the game. The missions are very fluid, very dynamic. The war bands that layer over with the champions, very fluid, very dynamic. You can play 1, 2, 3, or custom even more. There's a lot of moving parts. So this Tactica that I've been developing and the Tactica that I'm pushing up to my channel, unlike other skirmish games, these are not like you must do this turn because the game's way too fluid. This is more of points to look out for, points to consider, points to keep in mind.